The sun was dipping low over Pinewood Lake, casting a golden shimmer across the water, when my quiet life as a supposed cybersecurity consultant got turned upside down. It was August 15th, 2024, and I'd been living in this cozy cabin in the Oregon Hills for 2 years, a place I inherited from my uncle. To the neighbors, I was just Daniel Carter, the guy with the fancy security cameras who kept to himself. What they didn't know was that I was a federal agent, using this cabin as a base to monitor a sprawling money laundering operation tied to vacation rentals around the lake. My cover was airtight until a kid named Ethan Moore showed up at my door with a wild plan and a desperate edge in his eyes. Ethan was all nervous energy, pacing my porch like a caged animal, his backpack stuffed with underwater camera gear. "Mr. Carter, I know this sounds nuts, but your dock is perfect for my project," he blurted, words tripping over each other. "I've got this sponsorship deal for adventure videos, treasure hunting, deep water stuff. Your property's got the only private deep water access on the lake. I need it. I'll pay anything." His enthusiasm was almost contagious, but there was something off, a twitchy desperation that set off alarms from my years of training. When I gently turned him down, explaining the cabin was family property and not for sale, his face changed. His hands shook, and he started rambling about last chances and people who don't take excuses. That's when I knew this wasn't just about YouTube fame. Ethan was in deep with someone dangerous. Before I could dig deeper, his mother, Catherine Moore, stormed up my driveway like she was about to sue the whole lake. Catherine was the HOA president, a former lawyer with a sharp tongue and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice dripping with fake politeness, "Ethan's trying to make a mutually beneficial deal here, and your lack of cooperation is causing issues." She started tossing around phrases like community standards and property disputes, hinting at legal trouble if I didn't play ball. I could see right through her. She was in damage control mode, trying to save her kid from whatever mess he'd stumbled into. What she didn't know was that the names Ethan dropped creditors he owed money to match targets in my federal case. These weren't random loan sharks. They were players in a $50 million money laundering network I'd been tracking for months. Things escalated fast. Ethan started creeping around my property at night, filming with his phone like he was auditioning for a spy movie. His stealth was laughable. I could hear him tripping over branches from my kitchen, but his persistence was a problem. One night, he got too close, tripped my motion sensors, and dropped his phone in a panic. When I picked it up, I hit the jackpot. His camera roll was a goldmine. Weeks of footage capturing boat traffic, visitor patterns, and activities at vacation rentals I was investigating. Mixed in were frantic texts and voicemails from his creditors' names like Victor Mancini and Elena Rossi, straight out of my case files. Ethan had no idea he'd been documenting a criminal network. Catherine, meanwhile, was digging into my background like a bloodhound. She parked across the street at dawn, her car littered with property records and legal documents, convinced I was hiding something juicy. She even dragged Sheriff Tom Bradley into it, filing a police report claiming I'd stolen Ethan's phone after he accidentally dropped it while taking innocent photos. Tom, a solid guy who'd dealt with Catherine's complaints before, showed up looking apologetic. "Daniel, I've got to check this out," he said, clearly skeptical of her story. Ethan's version fell apart under questioning, went from claiming he was snapping lake scenery to admitting he was targeting my house to prove I was up to something. When Tom pressed about his debts, Ethan slipped, mentioning he owed money to serious people like Mancini. My ears perked up. Catherine tried to shut him down, but the damage was done. Her kid had just linked himself to my federal targets. The drama kicked into overdrive when Ethan upped his game with a $300 drone, buzzing over my cabin like a high-tech mosquito. He didn't know my property was rigged with federal-grade signal jammers, legal under my authority, but way beyond civilian tech. The drone lasted about 30 seconds before my system fried its connection, sending it spiraling into my yard with a pathetic crunch. The neighborhood went wild. Lisa Harper, a mom with 2 kids, watched from her porch like it was a sci-fi show. Mike Sullivan, a retired Marine, gave me a look that said he knew military tech when he saw it. And Greg Larson, our local amateur filmmaker, caught the whole thing on camera, whispering to Lisa that my setup wasn't normal. Catherine showed up, furious, accusing me of illegal electronic warfare and threatening FCC complaints. The irony was delicious. She was yelling about federal violations while standing on a property wired with FBI-approved gear. I retrieved the drone's memory card, perfectly legal since it crashed on my land, and found another treasure trove. Ethan's aerial footage had mapped every vacation rental tied to the money laundering ring, capturing cash drops and secret meetings he thought were evidence against me. The kid was a walking surveillance machine, and he didn't even know it. Then things got deadly serious. I was loading groceries in town when I spotted two goons cornering Ethan and Catherine in the parking lot. These guys weren't playing, they had concealed weapons and the cold confidence of hired muscle. 3 days, Mrs. Moore, one growled. Victor's done waiting for the $50,000. Ethan was shaking, and Catherine was barely holding it together, promising to convince me to sell my cabin. My cover demanded I stay out of it, but watching criminals threaten a family in broad daylight was too much. I made an anonymous call to Tom, dropping precise details about the goon's car and timing. He rolled in with backup just as things got ugly, forcing the thugs to play nice and leave. Catherine thanked me later, her voice trembling, but I could see the gears turning. She was starting to wonder how a consultant pulled off that kind of move. Catherine didn't back off. Instead, she doubled down, filing a county complaint about my dock's safety hazards. A nervous inspector showed up, only to declare my setup the safest he'd seen in years, thanks to federal-grade engineering. Meanwhile, Ethan went rogue, sabotaging boat motors and dock hardware at nearby rentals, trying to pin it on my jammers. He didn't count on Nathan Brooks, a retired mechanic who turned out to be an undercover Coast Guard agent. Nathan caught him red-handed, documenting everything with chilling precision. Ethan's targets? Every single property tied to my investigation. His vandalism had accidentally flagged the exact money laundering hubs we were after. The breaking point came when Victor Mancini's crew ran out of patience. 2 armed pros grabbed Ethan from his driveway, holding him at gunpoint while Catherine begged for time. They demanded $50,000 in 2 hours, or Ethan was done. The neighborhood froze. Lisa hustled her kids inside. Greg filmed from a safe distance, and Mike positioned himself like a tactician. I couldn't stand by. I called my handler, Agent Sarah Lane, and suited up with federal gear. "Sarah, I'm blowing my cover to save this kid," I said. She warned me it could tank 2 years of work, but I was already moving. When Sarah's tactical team rolled in, it was like a movie: black SUVs, body armor, and a command to drop weapons. The kidnappers surrendered, and Ethan was safe, but my cover was toast. The neighborhood stared as Sarah announced I was FBI, investigating a $50 million money laundering ring. With my identity exposed, Sarah went all in. She called a community meeting at the Lake Pavilion, revealing that Pinewood Lake had been a criminal hub for years. Nathan stood up, flashing his Coast Guard badge, admitting he'd been undercover too, tracking maritime cash flows. Ethan's drone footage and Catherine's obsessive legal research, originally meant to bully me, had mapped the entire network. Every video Ethan shot, every document Catherine compiled, was now evidence against Victor Mancini's crew. We launched raids within 24 hours, hitting 23 properties, arresting 47 people, and seizing $53 million in cash and assets. Victor himself got nabbed on a boat stuffed with $2 million, thanks to Nathan's intel. The aftermath was surreal. Ethan got treatment for bipolar disorder and channeled his energy into a mental health YouTube channel. Catherine lost her law license and her house, reduced to working retail while on probation. Nathan became HOA president, turning the lake into a model of community vigilance. Lisa's house doubled in value. Greg sold his footage to news networks, and Mike started consulting on community security. My cabin became a training site for undercover ops, and I got commendations for the bust. 6 months later, sipping coffee on my deck in February 2025, I watched new neighbors move into Catherine's old house. A lawyer mom and her entitled teen, already complaining about my security setup. Nathan's already documenting, Greg's filming, and Lisa's organizing a parent watch group. This community's learned its lesson, and these newcomers have no idea what they're walking into. So what do you think? Was Ethan a victim of his own desperation, or a reckless kid who got lucky? Should Catherine have faced harsher charges for obstructing justice? Or was her punishment fair? Could this lake ever go back to being just a quiet retreat? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you love a good twist, and subscribe for more stories where justice sneaks up in the wildest ways.